Question 1. The audit findings indicate a need to reinforce understanding of right-of-way procedures at uncontrolled intersections. A driver approaching an intersection in the Northern Territory where two vehicles arrive at approximately the same time, and neither vehicle is on a road with a stop or give way sign, must correctly determine who has priority. Which of the following best describes the correct application of Northern Territory road rules in this situation? Option A. The driver who is more assertive has the right-of-way. Option B. The larger vehicle has the right-of-way. Option C. The vehicle approaching the intersection from the right has the right-of-way. Option D. The vehicle that arrives at the intersection first has the right-of-way. Correct answer is C. The vehicle approaching the intersection from the right has the right-of-way. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential gap in the understanding and application of road rules concerning right-of-way at uncontrolled intersections within the Northern Territory. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires assessing not just knowledge of the rules, but also the ability to apply them in a practical, real-world context, which is crucial for safe driving. A driver's misinterpretation can lead to dangerous situations and potential accidents. The correct approach involves demonstrating a clear understanding of the Northern Territory's specific road rule regarding right-of-way at intersections where there are no traffic lights, stop signs, or give-way signs. This means correctly identifying the vehicle that has priority based on the established rules, such as the vehicle approaching from the right when two vehicles arrive at the same time, or the vehicle already on the road when entering from a private driveway. This understanding is fundamental to passing the Northern Territory driver's test, as it directly relates to the safe and legal operation of a vehicle and adherence to the Northern Territory Road Users Handbook. An incorrect approach would be to assume a general rule of thumb that might apply in other jurisdictions, but is not codified in Northern Territory law, or to rely on assumptions about other drivers' intentions rather than established rules. For instance, assuming the larger vehicle always has priority is not a rule in the Northern Territory and could lead to a collision. Similarly, assuming the driver who arrives first at the intersection has automatic right-of-way, regardless of the direction of approach or other factors, is a dangerous oversimplification and contradicts the specific rules designed to manage traffic flow and prevent accidents. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed or assertiveness over adherence to the rules, believing that being the first to enter the intersection will deter others from challenging right-of-way, which is a reckless and illegal strategy. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes accurate knowledge of the specific jurisdiction's road rules, followed by the ability to apply these rules logically and safely in various driving scenarios. This involves understanding the underlying principles of road safety and the legal requirements for all road users in the Northern Territory. Question 2. Regulatory review indicates that a supervisor in the Northern Territory needs to confirm the validity of a driver's license for a new employee who will be driving a company vehicle. Which of the following approaches best adheres to Northern Territory regulations and professional conduct? Option A. Contact the Northern Territory government's driver licensing authority or use their official online portal to verify the license status. Option B. Rely on a verbal confirmation from a friend who claims to have seen the driver's license previously. Option C. Utilize an unofficial third-party website that advertises driver's license verification services. Option D. Ask a colleague who may have access to driver information through their administrative role to check for you. The correct answer is A. Contact the Northern Territory government's driver licensing authority or use their official online portal to verify the license status. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an individual to balance the immediate need for information with the legal and ethical obligations to protect personal data. The temptation to access information that might be readily available, but not authorized, can lead to serious breaches of privacy and trust, with significant consequences for both the individual and the organization. Careful judgment is required to ensure all actions align with the Northern Territory's road safety legislation and privacy principles. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves directly consulting the official Northern Territory government driver licensing authority or their designated online portal for any information regarding a driver's license status. This approach ensures that the information obtained is accurate, up-to-date, and legally acquired. The Northern Territory government, through its Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics, is responsible for driver licensing and maintains the authoritative records. Accessing information through official channels respects the privacy of individuals as mandated by relevant privacy legislation and ensures compliance with the Northern Territory's road transport laws, which govern the use and disclosure of driver information. Incorrect approaches analysis. Accessing a driver's license information through an unofficial third-party website that claims to provide such data is professionally unacceptable. This approach carries a high risk of obtaining inaccurate or outdated information, and more importantly, it likely involves a breach of privacy laws and the Northern Territory's road transport regulations. Such third-party sites may operate illegally, circumventing the proper data protection mechanisms established by the government. Furthermore, attempting to obtain information by asking a colleague who may have access through their role, without a legitimate work-related need and proper authorization, constitutes a breach of confidentiality and potentially workplace policy, violating principles of data privacy and professional conduct. Relying on a verbal confirmation from a friend who claims to have seen the license is also unprofessional and unreliable, as it lacks any official verification and could lead to incorrect assumptions about a person's driving eligibility. Professional reasoning. Professionals should always prioritize legal and ethical means of obtaining information. This involves understanding the specific regulatory framework governing the data in question. In this case, the Northern Territory's road transport laws and privacy legislation. When in doubt, always seek information through official government channels or consult with a supervisor or legal counsel to ensure compliance. A decision-making framework should involve 1. Identifying the information needed. 2. Determining the legal and ethical constraints on obtaining that information. 3. Identifying the authorized and legitimate sources of that information. 4. Accessing the information through the authorized channels. 5. Verifying the accuracy and legitimacy of the information. Question 3. Consider a scenario where you are driving on a 2-lane road in the Northern Territory and you observe an emergency vehicle approaching rapidly from behind, with its lights flashing and sirens sounding. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant action to take? Option A. Pull over to the right side of the road and stop. Option B. Stop abruptly in the middle of your lane without checking for a safe pullover location. Option C. Continue driving at your current speed, assuming the emergency vehicle will navigate around you. Option D. Immediately and safely pull over to the left side of the road and stop until the emergency vehicle has passed. The correct answer is D. Immediately and safely pull over to the left side of the road and stop until the emergency vehicle has passed. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to demonstrate an understanding of road rules and safe driving practices in the Northern Territory, specifically concerning the interaction with emergency vehicles. Misjudging the situation or failing to react appropriately can lead to dangerous situations, potential accidents, and contravention of the Northern Territory's road traffic legislation. The applicant must prioritize safety and compliance with the law. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves immediately and safely pulling over to the left side of the road and stopping until the emergency vehicle has passed. This aligns with the fundamental principles of road safety and the specific requirements of the Northern Territory's road rules, which mandate drivers to give way to emergency vehicles displaying flashing lights and sounding sirens. This action ensures the unimpeded passage of the emergency vehicle, which is critical for its operational effectiveness and public safety. Incorrect approach is analysis. Failing to pull over and continuing to drive at the same speed or accelerating would be a direct contravention of the Northern Territory's road rules regarding emergency vehicles. This demonstrates a disregard for the law and a failure to prioritize the urgent needs of emergency services, potentially delaying critical response times. Pulling over to the right side of the road would obstruct the emergency vehicle's path and create a hazardous situation, potentially leading to a collision. This is contrary to the principle of facilitating the emergency vehicle's passage and is a clear violation of safe driving practices and road regulations. Stopping abruptly in the middle of the lane without first checking for a safe place to pull over could cause a rear-end collision with the approaching emergency vehicle or other traffic. This demonstrates poor situational awareness and a failure to execute a safe maneuver, which is a fundamental aspect of responsible driving. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must operate within a framework of legal compliance and ethical responsibility. When faced with a situation involving emergency vehicles, the decision-making process should prioritize safety, adherence to regulations, and the well-being of the community. This involves 1. Recognizing the presence and urgency of the emergency vehicle. 2. Recalling and applying the relevant road rules for giving way. 3. Executing a safe and appropriate maneuver to facilitate passage. 4. Confirming the emergency vehicle has passed before resuming normal driving. Question 4. Upon reviewing the Northern Territory's road safety regulations and considering a scenario where a driver hears an unusual, persistent knocking sound from their vehicle's engine while driving on a rural highway, what is the most responsible course of action to ensure compliance with roadworthiness and safe driving practices? Option A. Pull over to the side of the road at the earliest safe opportunity, away from traffic, to investigate the source of the noise. Option B. Continue driving to the nearest town to have the vehicle inspected, assuming the noise is minor and will not immediately impact driving performance. Option C. Immediately stop the vehicle in the current lane of travel to assess the situation, as the noise is concerning. Option D. Turn off the engine and coast to the side of the road, hoping the noise subsides as the engine cools. The correct answer is A. Pull over to the side of the road at the earliest safe opportunity, away from traffic, to investigate the source of the noise. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to make a critical decision under pressure, balancing immediate personal needs with the legal and ethical obligations of road safety. The driver must assess the severity of the situation, consider the potential risks to themselves and others, and act in a manner that upholds the Northern Territory's road traffic laws and general duty of care. The temptation to prioritize personal comfort or convenience over safety can be significant, making careful judgment essential. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves prioritizing the immediate safety of the vehicle and its occupants and other road users. This means pulling over to a safe location as soon as practicable, away from traffic flow, to assess the situation. This aligns with the fundamental principles of safe driving and the legal requirements in the Northern Territory to operate a vehicle responsibly and to take reasonable steps to avoid causing danger. The Road Safety Act 2003, NT, and associated regulations emphasize the driver's responsibility to ensure their vehicle is in a safe condition and to drive with due care and attention. Stopping to address a potential mechanical issue, even if minor, before it escalates is a proactive measure that demonstrates responsible driving and adherence to these principles. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to continue driving to the destination despite the unusual noise, assuming it is minor and will resolve itself. This fails to acknowledge the potential for mechanical failure to rapidly escalate, creating a hazard for the driver and other road users. Demonstrates a disregard for the duty of care and could contravene provisions of the Road Safety Act 2003, NT, that require drivers to ensure their vehicle is roadworthy. Another incorrect approach is to pull over immediately in an unsafe location, such as the middle of a lane or on a blind bend. While stopping is important, doing so without considering the safety of the stopping position creates a new and immediate danger. This action would directly contravene the requirement to drive with due care and attention, and to avoid causing danger to others, as stipulated by Northern Territory road traffic laws. A further incorrect approach is to ignore the noise and continue driving, hoping that it is not a serious issue and will not affect the vehicle's performance. This is a passive and negligent response that prioritizes convenience over safety. It fails to address a potential safety defect and could lead to a breakdown in a dangerous situation, or worse, an accident, violating the driver's fundamental responsibilities under Northern Territory law. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential hazards, the unusual noise, assessing the likelihood and severity of associated risks, mechanical failure, loss of control, accident, and then choosing the course of action that best mitigates those risks while adhering to legal and ethical obligations. In this context, the immediate priority is to ensure safety by stopping in a secure location to investigate the issue, rather than risking a more serious incident by continuing to drive. Question 5. When evaluating an uncontrolled intersection in the Northern Territory where you intend to turn right and a vehicle is approaching from your right, What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with road rules and promote safety? Option A. Proceed through the intersection, assuming you can pass before the other vehicle arrives. Option B. Accelerate to pass through the intersection before the approaching vehicle reaches it. Option C. Yield to the approaching vehicle from your right. Option D. Signal the approaching vehicle to proceed, hoping they understand your intention. The correct answer is C. Yield to the approaching vehicle from your right. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to make an immediate decision in a dynamic traffic environment where their actions could have significant consequences for themselves and others. The driver must balance their immediate need to proceed with the overarching responsibility to ensure road safety, adhering to the specific rules of the Northern Territory. The challenge lies in accurately assessing the situation and applying the correct legal and ethical principles under pressure. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves prioritizing the immediate safety of all road users. This means yielding to the approaching vehicle, as per Northern Territory road rules regarding intersections and right-of-way. Specifically, Northern Territory legislation, such as the traffic regulations, mandates that drivers must give way to vehicles approaching from their right at an intersection, unless otherwise directed by a traffic control device or sign. Even if the driver believes they can make it, the risk of a collision is too high, and the legal obligation is clear. This approach upholds the fundamental principle of defensive driving and adherence to traffic laws, which are designed to prevent accidents. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding through the intersection without yielding, assuming there is enough time to pass before the other vehicle arrives, is a direct violation of Northern Territory traffic laws concerning right-of-way at intersections. This action demonstrates a disregard for the safety of other road users and a failure to comply with legal obligations, significantly increasing the risk of a collision. Attempting to signal the approaching vehicle to proceed, without being certain they have seen the signal and understood the intention, is also an unsafe and potentially illegal maneuver. While signaling is part of communication, it does not absolve the driver of their responsibility to yield if they are legally required to do so. This approach introduces ambiguity and can lead to misinterpretation by other drivers, potentially causing an accident. Accelerating to beat the approaching vehicle is an aggressive and dangerous driving behavior. It directly contravenes the principles of safe driving and the specific rules of the Northern Territory that require drivers to yield when necessary. This action prioritizes personal expediency over the safety of others and is a clear breach of traffic regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance. This involves 1. Situational awareness, continuously observing the traffic environment. 2. Rule application, recalling and applying relevant Northern Territory road rules, particularly those concerning intersections and right-of-way. 3. Risk assessment, evaluating the potential consequences of different actions. 4. Safe action selection, choosing the action that minimizes risk and adheres to legal requirements. In this case, the legal requirement to yield to the vehicle on the right, combined with the inherent risks of misjudging speed and distance, makes yielding the only professionally sound and legally compliant decision. Question 6. The analysis reveals that a provisional license holder in the Northern Territory has recently received a traffic infringement notice. What is the most appropriate course of action to advise this driver regarding the potential impact on their license? Option A. Advise the driver to check the specific demerit points associated with the infringement and explain how these points, when accumulated, can lead to license suspension under the Northern Territory's graduated driver licensing system, recommending they consult the Northern Territory government's road safety website for official demerit point thresholds and consequences for provisional license holders. Option B. Recommend the driver contact a lawyer to dispute the infringement, regardless of its severity, to avoid any potential impact on their license. Option C. Inform the driver that most traffic infringements are minor and unlikely to affect their provisional license unless they commit multiple serious offenses. Option D. Suggest the driver ignore the infringement notice for now, as provisional license holders often have a grace period before demerit points are officially applied. Correct answer is A. Advise the driver to check the specific demerit points associated with the infringement and explain how these points, when accumulated, can lead to license suspension under the Northern Territory's graduated driver licensing system, recommending they consult the Northern Territory government's road safety website for official demerit point thresholds and consequences for provisional license holders. Explanation: the analysis reveals a scenario where a new driver in the Northern Territory, NT, is seeking to understand the implications of a recent traffic infringement on their provisional license. This situation is professionally challenging because it requires the driving instructor or licensing authority representative to provide accurate, jurisdiction-specific advice that balances the driver's immediate concerns with the long-term consequences and regulatory framework of the NT. Misinformation could lead to further license suspension or other penalties, impacting the driver's ability to legally operate a vehicle. Careful judgment is required to ensure the advice is both legally sound and ethically responsible. The best approach involves clearly explaining the specific consequences of the infringement under the Northern Territory's Graduated Driver Licensing System, GDLS, and relevant road traffic legislation. This includes detailing how demerit points are accrued, the threshold for license suspension for provisional license holders, and the process for appealing or managing such infringements. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the driver's situation with accurate, NT-specific information, empowering them to make informed decisions and comply with the law. The Road Safety, Road Rules Road Transport Act 2001, and the specific provisions of the GDLS in the NT mandate clear consequences for traffic offenses, and providing this information is a fundamental aspect of responsible guidance. An incorrect approach would be to provide generic advice about traffic infringements without referencing the specific rules applicable to provisional license holders in the NT. This fails to acknowledge the stricter penalties and monitoring mechanisms in place for new drivers under the GDLS, potentially leading the driver to underestimate the seriousness of their situation. Another incorrect approach would be to suggest that the infringement is minor and unlikely to have significant consequences without verifying the demerit point allocation and the driver's current demerit point balance. This could result in the driver exceeding the demerit point limit unknowingly and facing license suspension. Finally, advising the driver to ignore the infringement or delay addressing it is ethically and legally unsound, as it encourages noncompliance with NT road traffic laws and could exacerbate penalties. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes accuracy, jurisdiction-specific knowledge, and ethical responsibility. This involves 1. Identifying the specific jurisdiction and relevant legislation, Northern Territory's road transport laws and GDLS. 2. Understanding the driver's license class and their current record, provisional license, demerit points. 3. Researching the specific infringement and its associated demerit points and penalties under NT law. 4. Communicating the consequences clearly and comprehensively to the driver, outlining their options and responsibilities. 5. Maintaining professional integrity by providing truthful and legally compliant advice. Question 7. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a driver in the Northern Territory, NT, has recently received a medical diagnosis that could potentially affect their ability to operate a vehicle safely. What is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action for this driver? Option A. Continue driving as normal, hoping the condition does not significantly impact driving ability. Option B. Only inform the DIPL if the condition starts to noticeably affect their driving performance. Option C. Seek advice from a friend who is also a driver in the Northern Territory about whether they think it's necessary to report the condition. Option D. Immediately inform the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics DIPL about the new medical diagnosis and follow their guidance regarding a medical assessment. The correct answer is D. Immediately inform the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics DIPL about the new medical diagnosis and follow their guidance regarding a medical assessment. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driver in the Northern Territory, NT, who has recently been diagnosed with a condition that could potentially affect their driving ability. The core challenge lies in balancing personal responsibility for road safety with the legal and ethical obligations to report any medical condition that might impair driving. Failure to do so can have severe consequences for the individual and other road users. Careful judgment is required to determine the appropriate course of action based on the specific nature of the condition and its potential impact. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves proactively informing the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics, DIPL, about the new medical diagnosis. This approach is correct because it aligns with the fundamental principle of road safety enshrined in the Northern Territory's traffic legislation, specifically the Australian Road Rules and the Northern Territory's specific licensing regulations. These regulations place a duty on drivers to ensure they are medically fit to drive and to report any conditions that could compromise their ability to do so safely. By informing the DIPL, the driver initiates a process where their fitness to drive can be formally assessed by medical professionals and the relevant authorities, ensuring compliance with the law and protecting public safety. This proactive step demonstrates responsibility and adherence to the NT's commitment to safe roads. Incorrect approaches analysis. Failing to inform the DIPL and continuing to drive without a medical assessment is professionally unacceptable. This approach directly violates the driver's legal obligation under NT law to report any medical condition that may affect their ability to drive safely. It creates an unacceptable risk to public safety by potentially placing an impaired driver on the road. Seeking advice only from a friend who also drives in the NT without consulting medical professionals or the licensing authority is also professionally unacceptable. While well-intentioned, a friend's opinion does not constitute a formal medical assessment or legal advice regarding driving fitness. This approach bypasses the established regulatory framework designed to ensure driver competency and public safety in the Northern Territory. Continuing to drive as normal while hoping the condition does not affect driving ability is professionally unacceptable. This approach relies on speculation rather than a formal assessment and ignores the driver's legal and ethical duty to ensure their fitness to drive. It prioritizes personal convenience over the safety of others and contravenes the spirit and letter of NT road safety legislation. Professional reasoning. Professionals in the Northern Territory, particularly drivers, should adopt a proactive and transparent approach to medical conditions that could impact driving. The decision-making process should involve 1. Recognizing the potential impact of a new medical diagnosis on driving ability. 2. Consulting with a qualified medical practitioner to understand the nature and potential severity of the condition. 3. Understanding and adhering to the legal obligations under Northern Territory road transport legislation regarding reporting medical conditions. 4. Communicating any relevant medical information to the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics DIPL as required. 5. Cooperating fully with any assessments or requirements stipulated by the DIPL. This systematic approach ensures compliance, prioritizes safety, and upholds professional responsibility. Question 8. Implementation of a learner driver's decision-making process in the Northern Territory. When experiencing mild symptoms of fatigue after a long study session, what is the most responsible impact assessment approach to take before commencing a short drive home? Option A. Drive, believing that passenger's conversation will help stay alert and overcome the drowsiness. Option B. Honestly assess the severity of fatigue symptoms and postpone the drive if they could impair concentration or reaction time. Option C. Proceed with the drive, assuming the symptoms are manageable and the short distance will mitigate any risks. Option D. Drive because the destination is close and the journey is expected to be brief. The correct answer is B. Honestly assess the severity of fatigue symptoms and postpone the drive if they could impair concentration or reaction time. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a learner driver in the Northern Territory, NT, by requiring them to assess the impact of a potential hazard on their driving ability. The challenge lies in accurately evaluating their own physical and mental state and making a responsible decision that prioritizes safety and compliance with NT road rules, rather than succumbing to peer pressure or personal inconvenience. Careful judgment is required to discern between minor fatigue and a level of impairment that would compromise safe driving. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough self-assessment of current physical and mental condition before operating a vehicle. This means honestly evaluating symptoms of fatigue, such as heavy eyelids, yawning, difficulty concentrating, or drifting from the lane. If any of these symptoms are present to a degree that could impair reaction time or judgment, the correct approach is to postpone the driving activity. This aligns with the fundamental ethical responsibility of all road users to ensure they are in a fit condition to drive, as mandated by the Northern Territory's road safety legislation, which implicitly requires drivers to be in control of their vehicle at all times. This proactive approach prevents potential breaches of road safety laws and avoids endangering oneself and others. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves downplaying symptoms of fatigue and proceeding with the drive, believing it is manageable. This is a failure to adhere to the implicit requirement of being in a fit condition to drive. It disregards the potential for impaired judgment and reaction times, which are critical for safe operation of a vehicle on NT roads, and could lead to a breach of the general duty of care owed to other road users. Another incorrect approach is to drive because the destination is close or the journey is short. This is a dangerous rationalization that ignores the fact that accidents can occur at any speed or distance. The duration or proximity of the journey does not negate the risks associated with impaired driving, and continuing to drive under such conditions is a direct contravention of the principles of safe driving and road user responsibility in the Northern Territory. A further incorrect approach is to drive despite feeling drowsy because a passenger is present and can offer conversation. While a passenger might provide some distraction, they cannot compensate for genuine fatigue-induced impairment. Relying on a passenger's conversation to overcome significant drowsiness is a misjudgment of one's own capabilities and a failure to recognize that conversation does not restore the cognitive functions necessary for safe driving. This approach neglects the primary responsibility for safe operation of the vehicle, which rests solely with the driver. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must prioritize safety and ethical conduct. When faced with a situation that could compromise their ability to perform their duties safely, the decision-making process should involve 1. Honest self-assessment of one's condition against established safety standards, in this case, the ability to drive safely. 2. Identification of potential risks associated with proceeding. 3. Selection of the option that minimizes risk and upholds legal and ethical obligations. In driving, this means erring on the side of caution and postponing the activity if there is any doubt about one's fitness to drive. Question 9. To address the challenge of a learner driver in the Northern Territory NT failing to perceive a significant hazard during a practical driving assessment, what is the most appropriate immediate action for the assessing instructor? Option A. Continue the assessment, assuming the learner will self-correct their hazard perception. Option B. Allow the learner to continue and only discuss the hazard perception issue at the conclusion of the assessment. Option C. Pause the assessment and provide immediate, corrective feedback on the specific hazard perception failure. Option D. Immediately fail the learner without further explanation of the specific hazard perception error. Correct answer is C. Pause the assessment and provide immediate, corrective feedback on the specific hazard perception failure. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in the Northern Territory, NT, because it requires balancing the immediate need to assess a learner driver's competency with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the NT's licensing regulations. The instructor must make a judgment call that could impact the learner's progress and, more critically, the safety of other road users. The pressure to complete the assessment efficiently must not override the legal and ethical obligations to ensure the learner is genuinely ready for independent driving. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves pausing the assessment and providing immediate, corrective feedback on the observed hazard perception failure. This aligns with the NT's road safety strategy and the principles of the NT driver licensing system, which emphasize developing safe driving habits and competent hazard identification. By stopping the assessment and addressing the specific lapse in judgment, the instructor is fulfilling their duty of care and ensuring the learner understands the critical nature of their error. This allows for a more accurate and ethical evaluation of the learner's current skill level and provides a clear learning opportunity before proceeding, thereby upholding the integrity of the licensing process and promoting road safety. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to ignore the lapse and continue the assessment, assuming the learner will correct themselves. This fails to meet the NT's requirement for demonstrating adequate hazard perception skills, a key component of safe driving. It also breaches the instructor's professional and ethical duty to ensure the learner is not a danger to themselves or others, potentially leading to a false sense of competency and a higher risk of future incidents. Another incorrect approach is to immediately fail the learner without providing specific feedback on the hazard perception error. While safety is paramount, the NT licensing framework encourages constructive feedback to facilitate learning. Failing a learner without clearly identifying the specific deficiency, especially one as critical as hazard perception, is not conducive to their development as a safe driver and may not accurately reflect their overall ability if the lapse was an isolated incident. A further incorrect approach is to allow the learner to continue and then mention the hazard perception issue only at the end of the assessment. This delays crucial corrective feedback, meaning the learner may continue to exhibit unsafe behaviors without immediate intervention. It also compromises the integrity of the assessment itself, as the instructor has allowed a potentially dangerous situation to unfold without addressing it in real time, failing to uphold the NT's commitment to proactive road safety education. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves continuous observation, real-time assessment of risk, and the ability to intervene appropriately. When a critical error like a failure to perceive a hazard occurs, the immediate priority is to mitigate risk. This is followed by providing clear, specific feedback that educates the learner and allows for a more accurate reevaluation of their competency. The decision should always be guided by the NT's road safety objectives and the ethical responsibility to ensure only competent drivers are licensed. Question 10. Examination of the data shows a learner driver in the Northern Territory has completed a 150 km journey. Their vehicle has an average fuel consumption rate of 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers. If the current fuel price in the Northern Territory is $1.85 per liter, what is the total fuel cost for this journey, and what is the most accurate method to determine this cost? Option A. The total fuel cost is $150.00 as the distance traveled directly correlates to the cost. Option B. The total fuel cost is approximately $25.00 as driving longer distances generally increases fuel costs significantly. Option C. The total fuel cost is $23.51, calculated by first determining the total fuel consumed and then multiplying by the price per liter. Option D. The total fuel cost is $23.51, based on the understanding that fuel efficiency is a major factor in reducing driving expenses. The correct answer is C. The total fuel cost is $23.51, calculated by first determining the total fuel consumed and then multiplying by the price per liter. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in the Northern Territory, NT, by requiring them to assess a learner driver's practical understanding of fuel efficiency and its impact on driving costs, directly relating to responsible vehicle operation and financial awareness, which are implicit components of safe and sustainable driving practices encouraged by the NT's driver licensing framework. The challenge lies in translating theoretical knowledge of fuel consumption into a practical, quantifiable assessment that reflects real-world driving conditions and economic considerations. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves calculating the total fuel cost for a specific route based on the vehicle's average fuel consumption rate and the current fuel price in the Northern Territory. This method directly addresses the question by quantifying the financial impact of fuel usage. It requires the learner to apply mathematical concepts to a practical driving scenario, demonstrating an understanding of how driving habits and vehicle efficiency translate into monetary expenditure. This aligns with the NT's emphasis on developing competent and responsible drivers who are aware of the broader implications of their driving, including economic factors. The calculation would involve total fuel consumed equals distance/100 asterisk fuel consumption rate L/100 km. Total fuel cost equals total fuel consumed asterisk fuel price $/L. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to simply state that driving faster uses more fuel without providing any quantitative data. This lacks the mathematical rigor required for a proper assessment and fails to demonstrate the learner's ability to apply numerical reasoning to the problem. It is an incomplete answer that does not fulfill the analytical requirement of the question. Another incorrect approach would be to estimate the fuel cost based on a general feeling or anecdotal evidence. This is unprofessional and unreliable, as it bypasses the need for accurate calculation and data-driven assessment. It fails to adhere to the principles of objective evaluation and could lead to misinformation. A further incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the environmental impact of fuel consumption without addressing the financial aspect. While environmental awareness is important, the question specifically asks about the financial impact, and neglecting this component means the question is not fully answered. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such scenarios by first identifying the core requirement of the question, which in this case is a quantitative assessment of financial impact. They should then select the method that most accurately and directly addresses this requirement using available data and relevant mathematical principles. This involves breaking down the problem into calculable steps and ensuring that the final answer is supported by a clear and logical mathematical process. Professionals must always prioritize accuracy, objectivity, and adherence to the specific parameters of the assessment. Question 11. Research into the impact of a newly diagnosed medical condition on driving ability in the Northern Territory has revealed that drivers have a responsibility to ensure their fitness to operate a vehicle. If a driver in the Northern Territory is diagnosed with a condition that could potentially affect their driving, what is the most appropriate and legally compliant course of action? Option A. Seek advice from friends and family about whether the condition is likely to affect driving and proceed based on their opinions. Option B. Immediately notify the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics (DIPL) about the medical condition and follow their guidance regarding any necessary medical assessments or license conditions. Option C. Continue driving as normal and only report the condition if it directly leads to a driving incident or near miss. Option D. Wait to see if the condition worsens significantly before considering any action, assuming minor symptoms do not pose a risk. The correct answer is B. Immediately notify the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics (DIPL) about the medical condition and follow their guidance regarding any necessary medical assessments or license conditions. Explanation. The scenario presents a professional challenge for a driver in the Northern Territory, NT, who has recently been diagnosed with a medical condition that could potentially impair their driving ability. The core of the challenge lies in balancing personal autonomy and the desire to continue driving with the paramount responsibility to public safety, as mandated by NT road transport legislation. Careful judgment is required to assess the risk posed by the condition and to comply with legal obligations without undue delay. The correct approach involves proactively and transparently informing the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics (DIPL) about the medical condition. This aligns with the requirements of the Northern Territory's Road Safety Act 2009 and associated Australian road rules, which place a legal obligation on drivers to notify relevant authorities if their medical condition may affect their ability to drive safely. This proactive disclosure allows DIPL to assess the individual's fitness to drive, potentially requiring a medical assessment by a qualified practitioner. This ensures that any necessary restrictions or conditions are placed on the driver's license, thereby safeguarding other road users and upholding the integrity of the licensing system. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible driving and adherence to the law. An incorrect approach would be to continue driving without informing the authorities, hoping the condition does not manifest in a way that causes an incident. This fails to meet the legal obligation to report, potentially endangering others. It also undermines the regulatory framework designed to ensure road safety. Another incorrect approach is to only seek advice from friends or family who may not be aware of the specific legal requirements or the potential severity of the condition. This bypasses the official channels for assessment and can lead to a misjudgment of risk. Finally, delaying notification until after an incident occurs is a significant ethical and legal failure, as it prioritizes personal convenience over public safety and potentially exacerbates the consequences of any driving impairment. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes legal compliance and public safety. This involves 1. Understanding the legal obligations related to medical conditions and driving in the Northern Territory. 2. Honestly assessing the potential impact of the medical condition on driving ability. 3. Proactively seeking guidance from official sources, such as the DIPL or a medical professional, regarding reporting requirements and potential driving restrictions. 4. acting promptly to fulfill any reporting or assessment obligations. Question 12. Which approach would be the most appropriate for a driver approaching an intersection in the Northern Territory where a pedestrian is standing on the footpath, looking towards the road and appears to be intending to cross, but has not yet stepped off the curb? Option A. Proceed cautiously, assuming the pedestrian will wait for the vehicle to pass. Option B. Accelerate slightly to pass the pedestrian before they reach the crossing. Option C. Honk the horn to alert the pedestrian to the vehicle's presence. Option D. Come to a complete stop and wait for the pedestrian to enter the roadway and clear the crossing before proceeding. The correct answer is D. Come to a complete stop and wait for the pedestrian to enter the roadway and clear the crossing before proceeding. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a driver to make an immediate decision in a dynamic traffic environment that could have safety implications. The driver must balance their immediate need to proceed with the overarching responsibility to operate a vehicle safely and in compliance with Northern Territory road rules, particularly concerning the presence of vulnerable road users. Careful judgment is required to assess the risk and choose the safest course of action. Correct approach analysis. The approach that represents best professional practice involves prioritizing the safety of the pedestrian and yielding the right-of-way. This means the driver should come to a complete stop and wait for the pedestrian to clear the roadway entirely before proceeding. This aligns with the fundamental principles of the Northern Territory's road safety legislation, which mandates drivers to give way to pedestrians in situations where their path might intersect, especially at intersections or when a pedestrian is clearly intending to cross. The Road Users Code of the Northern Territory emphasizes the importance of driver awareness and the need to avoid collisions with vulnerable road users. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed cautiously without stopping, assuming the pedestrian will see the vehicle and stop. This is a regulatory failure because it disregards the primary responsibility of the driver to ensure the pedestrian's safety and assumes the pedestrian's awareness and reaction, which cannot be guaranteed. It violates the principle of giving way to pedestrians who are on or entering a crossing. Another incorrect approach is to honk the horn to alert the pedestrian. While intended to warn, this can startle a pedestrian, potentially causing them to react unpredictably and increase the risk of an accident. Ethically, it is an aggressive action that does not prioritize the pedestrian's well-being and is not a substitute for yielding the right-of-way. A further incorrect approach is to accelerate slightly to pass the pedestrian before they reach the crossing. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for the pedestrian's right-of-way and places them in immediate danger. This action directly contravenes the spirit and letter of road rules designed to protect pedestrians. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a defensive driving mindset. This involves anticipating potential hazards, such as pedestrians, and making proactive decisions to mitigate risk. When faced with uncertainty regarding a pedestrian's intentions or visibility, the safest course of action is always to yield. Drivers should constantly assess their surroundings and be prepared to stop or adjust their speed to ensure the safety of all road users, especially the most vulnerable. Adherence to the Northern Territory's road rules, which prioritize pedestrian safety, is paramount. Question 13. Benchmark analysis indicates that drivers in the Northern Territory, NT, frequently encounter situations where they feel the need to use their mobile phones while driving. Considering the NT road safety regulations, which of the following approaches best reflects a driver's legal and professional responsibility when stopped at a red traffic light and needing to check an urgent message? Option A. Make a brief phone call using the handheld mobile phone to respond to the urgent message while stopped at the red traffic light. Option B. Quickly glance at the message on the handheld mobile phone while stopped at the red traffic light. Option C. Wait until the vehicle is parked in a safe and legal location off the roadway before checking the message. Option D. Pull over to the side of the road and stop the engine to make the phone call. The correct answer is C. Wait until the vehicle is parked in a safe and legal location off the roadway before checking the message. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driver in the Northern Territory, NT, due to the specific regulations surrounding the use of mobile phones while driving. The core difficulty lies in balancing the perceived urgency of a personal communication with the absolute legal prohibition against handheld device use, even when stationary, unless in a designated safe area. Misjudging the legality or the potential consequences of a brief interaction can lead to significant penalties, including fines and demerit points, impacting driving privileges. Careful judgment is required to prioritize road safety and legal compliance over immediate personal convenience. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves recognizing that the vehicle is still considered in use for the purposes of mobile phone legislation in the NT, even when stationary at traffic lights or in traffic. Therefore, the correct approach is to wait until the vehicle is parked in a safe, legal location off the roadway before making or receiving a phone call. This aligns directly with the Northern Territory's road safety, road rules, regulation, which strictly prohibit the use of a mobile phone by a driver unless it is hands-free or the vehicle is parked. The ethical imperative is to maintain full attention on the driving task and to avoid any action that could compromise safety or violate the law. Incorrect approaches analysis. Using a mobile phone to quickly check a message while stopped at traffic lights is a regulatory failure. The NT road safety, road rules, regulations do not permit this, as the vehicle is still considered in use. This action demonstrates a disregard for the law and a potential compromise of road safety, as even a brief distraction can have serious consequences. Making a brief phone call using a handheld device while stopped in traffic is also a regulatory failure. Similar to checking a message, the vehicle is still in operation, and handheld mobile phone use is prohibited. This approach prioritizes personal communication over legal compliance and the safety of oneself and other road users. Pulling over to the side of the road and stopping the engine to make a phone call, while seemingly cautious, is not the most efficient or legally sound approach if the intention is simply to make a brief call. While parking the vehicle is a prerequisite for legal phone use, the NT regulations allow for hands-free use while the engine is running, but the vehicle is stationary in traffic, or to park in a designated safe area. This approach, while avoiding the direct violation of handheld use, might be overly cautious and less practical than other legally permissible options if a hands-free device is available, or if the driver can wait for a designated parking spot. However, if the intent is to avoid any potential ambiguity, it is still a safer choice than using a handheld device. The primary failure in this option, compared to the correct approach, is that it is not the most direct interpretation of the law's allowance for hands-free use or parking in a safe area. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a proactive approach to understanding and adhering to traffic laws. This involves familiarizing oneself with the specific regulations of the Northern Territory concerning mobile phone use while driving. When faced with a situation where a phone call or message seems urgent, the professional decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the legal restrictions. Is the vehicle in use? Is handheld device use permitted? 2. Assessing the environment. Is there a safe and legal place to park? 3. Considering available technology. Is a hands-free device available? 4. Prioritizing safety and legality. If in doubt, err on the side of caution and avoid any action that could be construed as a violation. The ultimate goal is to maintain a safe driving record and contribute to overall road safety. Question 14. The performance metrics show a significant increase in near-miss incidents reported by newly licensed drivers across the Northern Territory. Considering the Northern Territory road safety strategy's emphasis on education and support, which of the following approaches best addresses this trend to enhance road safety? Option A. Introduce a mandatory punitive retesting regime for any driver involved in a near miss, without providing additional training or support. Option B. Increase the severity of penalties for all drivers involved in reported near-miss incidents to deter future occurrences. Option C. Classify near-miss incidents as low-priority events and focus resources on investigating only actual collisions. Option D. Implement a proactive program to engage with new drivers, gather detailed feedback on the circumstances surrounding near misses, and offer targeted educational resources and support to address identified skill gaps. The correct answer is D. Implement a proactive program to engage with new drivers, gather detailed feedback on the circumstances surrounding near misses, and offer targeted educational resources and support to address identified skill gaps. Explanation. The performance metrics show a concerning trend in near-miss incidents reported by new drivers in the Northern Territory, NT. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need to encourage reporting of safety concerns with the potential for drivers to feel discouraged or even penalized for reporting issues, which could inadvertently lead to underreporting. Careful judgment is required to implement a system that genuinely supports new drivers and improves road safety without creating a disincentive for reporting. The best approach involves proactively engaging with new drivers to understand the root causes of near misses and providing targeted support and education. This aligns with the Northern Territory's commitment to road safety as outlined in the Northern Territory Road Safety Strategy, which emphasizes education and support for all road users, particularly vulnerable groups like new drivers. By actively seeking feedback and offering resources, the Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Logistics can foster a culture of continuous improvement and demonstrate a genuine commitment to driver development. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the well-being of road users and adheres to the principles of responsible governance. An approach that focuses solely on increasing penalties for drivers involved in near misses is ethically flawed and likely to be counterproductive. It fails to address the underlying issues contributing to these incidents and could lead to increased anxiety and fear among new drivers, potentially causing them to avoid reporting future near misses. This would undermine the goal of improving road safety by creating a less transparent reporting environment, contrary to the spirit of the NT Road Safety Strategy. Another unacceptable approach is to dismiss near-miss reports as minor incidents that do not require further investigation. This demonstrates a lack of commitment to proactive safety measures and ignores the valuable data that near misses provide. The Northern Territory's Road Safety Framework encourages the analysis of all incidents, regardless of severity, to identify systemic risks and implement preventative actions. Failing to do so represents a regulatory oversight and an ethical failure to protect the public. Finally, an approach that involves implementing a punitive system without providing adequate support or educational resources is also professionally unacceptable. While accountability is important, it must be coupled with a supportive framework that helps drivers learn from their experiences. The NT's approach to driver licensing and road safety emphasizes a graduated system designed to build competence and confidence. A purely punitive response without educational components would contradict this philosophy and fail to equip new drivers with the necessary skills to navigate the complexities of NT roads safely. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes data-driven insights, proactive intervention, and a supportive approach to driver development. This involves understanding the regulatory intent behind road safety initiatives, considering the ethical implications of all actions, and fostering a culture of open communication and continuous learning. Question 15. The performance metrics show a significant increase in near-miss incident reports from newly licensed drivers in the Northern Territory, NT. Considering the NT's focus on fostering a safe driving environment and encouraging proactive safety awareness, which of the following responses to these reports best aligns with these objectives? Option A. Acknowledge the report, conduct a non-punitive review to identify contributing factors, and provide targeted feedback and resources for improvement. Option B. File the report without further investigation, assuming it is a minor issue that does not require follow-up. Option C. Issue a formal warning to the driver for the near-miss incident, emphasizing the seriousness of the infraction. Option D. Publicly acknowledge the driver's report in a manner that highlights the potential danger, serving as a general warning to others. The correct answer is A. Acknowledge the report, conduct a non-punitive review to identify contributing factors, and provide targeted feedback and resources for improvement. Explanation. The performance metrics show a concerning trend in near-miss incidents reported by new drivers in the Northern Territory, NT. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need to encourage reporting of safety concerns with the potential for drivers to feel discouraged or even penalized for reporting issues, which could inadvertently lead to underreporting. Careful judgment is required to implement a feedback system that is both effective in gathering data and supportive of driver development. The best approach involves a structured, non-punitive review process that focuses on learning and improvement. This means acknowledging the driver's report, conducting a thorough but objective assessment of the incident to understand contributing factors, and then providing constructive feedback and additional training or resources tailored to the identified areas of concern. This aligns with the Northern Territory's commitment to road safety by fostering a culture where drivers feel empowered to report potential hazards and learn from their experiences, thereby contributing to the overall improvement of road safety for all users. This proactive and supportive method directly addresses the goal of reducing future incidents by equipping drivers with better skills and awareness. An approach that involves immediate disciplinary action or a formal reprimand for reporting a near miss is professionally unacceptable. This creates a punitive environment that discourages reporting, directly contradicting the objective of gathering data to improve road safety. Such an approach would violate the ethical principle of fostering a safe reporting culture and could lead to drivers withholding crucial information about potential hazards. Another unacceptable approach is to dismiss the near-miss report without further investigation, especially if the driver expresses concern. This demonstrates a lack of seriousness towards potential safety issues and fails to acknowledge the driver's proactive effort. It neglects the opportunity to identify systemic or individual factors that could lead to more serious accidents, thereby failing in the duty of care to promote road safety. Finally, an approach that involves public shaming or singling out the driver for reporting a near miss is highly unethical and unprofessional. This not only discourages the individual driver from future reporting, but also creates a climate of fear and distrust among other drivers, severely undermining any efforts to improve road safety through open communication and learning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a safety-first mindset, adheres to the principles of continuous improvement, and upholds ethical standards of fairness and support. This involves actively seeking to understand the root causes of incidents, providing appropriate support and education, and fostering an environment where safety concerns can be raised without fear of reprisal. Question 16. The performance metrics show a significant increase in near-miss incidents reported by provisional license holders in the Northern Territory, NT, over the past 6 months. Considering the NT's road safety objectives, which of the following strategies would be the most effective and ethically sound for addressing this trend? Option A. Introduce a penalty system for provisional license holders involved in a high number of reported near-miss incidents, regardless of fault. Option B. Focus solely on increasing enforcement of existing traffic laws for provisional license holders, assuming this will deter risky behavior leading to near misses. Option C. Implement a proactive outreach program offering additional defensive driving workshops and personalized feedback sessions for provisional license holders, focusing on common scenarios identified in near-miss reports. Option D. Mandate a minimum number of near-miss reports per provisional license holder per quarter to ensure comprehensive data collection. The correct answer is C. Implement a proactive outreach program offering additional defensive driving workshops and personalized feedback sessions for provisional license holders, focusing on common scenarios identified in near-miss reports. Explanation. The performance metrics show a concerning trend in near-miss incidents reported by new drivers in the Northern Territory, NT. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need to encourage reporting of safety concerns with the potential for drivers to feel discouraged or even penalized for reporting issues, which could lead to underreporting. Careful judgment is required to implement a system that genuinely supports new drivers and improves road safety without creating undue burden or fear. The best approach involves proactively engaging with new drivers to understand the root causes of near misses and providing targeted support and education. This aligns with the NT's commitment to road safety as outlined in the Northern Territory Road Safety Strategy, which emphasizes education, enforcement, and community engagement. By actively seeking feedback and offering resources, the NT can foster a culture of continuous improvement and support for new drivers, directly addressing the identified performance metric. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes the well-being of road users and demonstrates a commitment to learning from incidents to prevent future harm. An approach that focuses solely on increasing the number of reported near misses without a clear plan for analysis and intervention is insufficient, risks creating a false sense of progress if the underlying issues are not addressed. Furthermore, an approach that involves disciplinary action for drivers involved in near misses, even if unintentional, would be ethically problematic and counterproductive. It would likely lead to underreporting, as drivers would fear repercussions, thereby hindering the collection of vital data needed to identify and mitigate risks. This directly contradicts the principles of a just culture and the goal of improving road safety through open communication and learning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data-driven insights, ethical considerations, and regulatory compliance. This involves first understanding the problem, performance metrics, then identifying potential solutions, evaluating them against regulatory requirements and ethical principles, and finally implementing the most effective and responsible approach. Continuous monitoring and adaptation are crucial to ensure the chosen strategy remains effective. Question 17. Quality control measures reveal that during a practical driving lesson in the Northern Territory, a learner driver consistently fails to signal their intentions at intersections, despite prior instruction. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the driving instructor to take? Option A. Ignore the signaling errors, assuming the learner will remember to signal during their actual driving test. Option B. Immediately terminate the driving lesson due to the learner's repeated failure to signal. Option C. Continue the lesson, making a mental note to discuss signaling issues at the end of the session. Option D. Safely stop the vehicle and explain the importance of signaling, demonstrating the correct procedure and providing an opportunity for the learner to practice. The correct answer is D. Safely stop the vehicle and explain the importance of signaling, demonstrating the correct procedure and providing an opportunity for the learner to practice. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in the Northern Territory, NT, because it requires balancing the immediate need to complete a lesson with the paramount importance of ensuring a learner driver's competency and adherence to road rules. The instructor must make a judgment call that could impact the learner's progress and, more critically, road safety. The pressure to finish the scheduled lesson time can create a conflict of interest if not managed ethically and professionally. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately addressing the learner's failure to signal correctly. This approach prioritizes safety and adherence to the Northern Territory's road rules, specifically the requirement for clear and timely signaling, as mandated by the Northern Territory Road Users Handbook. By stopping the vehicle safely and explaining the error, the instructor reinforces correct driving behavior, prevents the learner from practicing an unsafe habit, and ensures the lesson remains focused on developing safe driving skills. This aligns with the ethical obligation of a driving instructor to produce competent and safe drivers. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves allowing the lesson to continue without immediate correction, intending to address the issue later. This is professionally unacceptable because it permits unsafe driving behavior to persist, potentially reinforcing a bad habit. It fails to uphold the instructor's duty of care to the learner and other road users, as the learner is not being actively guided towards safe and lawful driving practices during the critical moment of error. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the error as minor and continue the lesson without any feedback. This is ethically flawed as it downplays the importance of fundamental road rules, such as signaling, which are crucial for predictable and safe road interactions. It suggests a lack of commitment to thorough instruction and may lead the learner to believe that such omissions are acceptable, undermining the integrity of the driving test and road safety in the Northern Territory. A further incorrect approach is to abruptly end the lesson due to the single error, while the error needs correction. Terminating the lesson without providing constructive feedback or an opportunity for the learner to rectify their mistake is overly punitive and does not serve the purpose of instruction. It fails to demonstrate professional judgment in managing learning progression and addressing errors constructively. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Immediate assessment of the situation. Is the error a safety risk? 2. Regulatory adherence. Does the error violate specific road rules? 3. Instructional effectiveness. How can the error be best corrected to promote learning? 4. Ethical obligations, upholding the duty of care and producing competent drivers. In this case, the immediate, safe correction and explanation of the signaling error is the most professionally sound and ethically responsible course of action. Question 18. The performance metrics show a recent increase in reported near-miss incidents among drivers who have held their Northern Territory (NT) provisional license for less than 6 months. Considering the NT's focus on developing safe and competent drivers, what is the most appropriate response to this trend? Option A. Immediately implement stricter speed limits and mandatory additional practical driving tests for all drivers within their first year of holding an NT provisional license. Option B. Develop and disseminate targeted educational materials and resources focusing on common contributing factors to near misses, and offer optional refresher sessions for new provisional license holders. Option C. Dismiss the increase as a statistical anomaly and continue with existing monitoring procedures without further action. Option D. Issue a general warning to all new provisional license holders in the NT about the increased risk of near-miss incidents and the consequences of unsafe driving. Correct answer is B. Develop and disseminate targeted educational materials and resources focusing on common contributing factors to near misses, and offer optional refresher sessions for new provisional license holders. Explanation: the performance metrics show a concerning trend in near-miss incidents reported by new drivers in the Northern Territory, NT. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need to encourage reporting of safety-related events with the potential for drivers to feel discouraged or penalized for reporting. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the feedback provided is constructive and promotes a culture of continuous improvement, rather than fostering fear or defensiveness. The best approach involves a proactive and educational response. This means acknowledging the data, framing it as an opportunity for learning and skill development, and offering targeted resources and support. This aligns with the NT's commitment to road safety and the principles of graduated driver licensing, which aim to gradually build driver competence. The road safety strategy for the Northern Territory emphasizes education and support for new drivers, and this approach directly addresses that objective by providing constructive feedback and resources to improve driving skills and awareness. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the data as insignificant or to attribute the incidents solely to driver error without offering support. This fails to acknowledge the potential systemic factors or the learning curve associated with new drivers and neglects the NT's proactive road safety initiatives. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on punitive measures or warnings, which can discourage future reporting and create a negative perception of the licensing authority. This contradicts the goal of fostering a safety-conscious driving community and undermines the educational intent of the licensing process. A further incorrect approach is to implement immediate, broad restrictions on all new drivers based on this data without further investigation or targeted intervention. This is an overreaction that penalizes all new drivers and does not address the root causes of the near misses, potentially leading to frustration and disengagement. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes data-driven insights, educational interventions, and a supportive approach to driver development. This involves understanding the underlying causes of observed trends, identifying appropriate resources and interventions, and communicating in a manner that encourages positive behavioral change and adherence to road safety principles. Question 19. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in near-miss incidents reported by learner drivers across the Northern Territory, NT. Which of the following approaches best addresses this trend to enhance road safety? Option A. Focus on increasing penalties for learner drivers involved in near-miss incidents to deter future occurrences. Option B. Attribute the increase in near misses solely to an overzealous reporting culture among driving instructors and take no further action. Option C. Immediately implement a mandatory increase in supervised driving hours for all learner drivers across the NT to mitigate potential risks. Option D. Conduct a detailed analysis of the reported near-miss incidents to identify common patterns, contributing factors, and specific areas of difficulty for learner drivers, and then develop targeted training enhancements or resources. The correct answer is D. Conduct a detailed analysis of the reported near-miss incidents to identify common patterns, contributing factors, and specific areas of difficulty for learner drivers, and then develop targeted training enhancements or resources. Explanation: the performance metrics show a consistent increase in near-miss incidents reported by learner drivers in the Northern Territory, NT. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a proactive response to potential safety issues without overreacting to a single data point. The goal is to identify the root cause and implement effective interventions to improve road safety for new drivers, aligning with the NT's commitment to reducing road trauma. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between genuine trends indicating systemic problems and statistical noise or reporting biases. The best approach involves a comprehensive review of the reported near misses to identify common contributing factors. This includes analyzing the types of incidents, locations, times of day, and the experience level of the learner drivers. This data-driven investigation allows for targeted interventions, such as revising specific training modules, providing additional resources on common hazard perception issues, or collaborating with driving instructors to address recurring challenges. This aligns with the NT's road safety strategies, which emphasize evidence-based interventions and continuous improvement in driver education. The Road Safety Act 2009, NT, and associated regulations mandate that driver training and licensing processes contribute to the overall safety of NT roads, requiring a responsive and analytical approach to emerging trends in driver behavior. An approach that immediately proposes a significant increase in mandatory supervised driving hours for all learner drivers without a thorough analysis of the near-miss data is procedurally flawed. While increased supervision can be beneficial, a blanket mandate without understanding the specific causes of the near misses is an inefficient and potentially burdensome solution that doesn't address the underlying issues. This fails to meet the professional obligation to use resources effectively and to implement interventions that are proportionate and evidence-based, as expected under the NT's driver licensing framework. Another unacceptable approach is to dismiss the increase in near misses as a result of increased reporting enthusiasm by instructors, without any investigation. This ignores a potential safety concern and demonstrates a lack of due diligence. The NT's road safety framework expects a proactive stance on identifying and mitigating risks, and failing to investigate a statistically significant trend in near misses could have serious consequences for road safety. Finally, an approach that suggests focusing solely on penalizing learner drivers who are involved in near misses, without considering the training and support aspects, is ethically and practically unsound. The primary objective of the licensing system is to develop safe drivers, not to punish mistakes without understanding their context. This approach neglects the educational component of driver training and fails to address potential deficiencies in the learning process, which is contrary to the spirit of the NT's driver education and licensing objectives. Professionals should employ a systematic decision-making process that begins with data collection and analysis. This involves understanding the context of the data, identifying potential causes, evaluating different intervention strategies based on their likely effectiveness and feasibility, and then implementing and monitoring the chosen interventions. This iterative process ensures that responses are informed, targeted, and contribute to the overarching goal of improving road safety. Question 20. The performance metrics show a 15% increase in average vehicle speed on Northern Territory arterial roads and a 10% increase in minor collisions over the last quarter. Assuming a direct proportional relationship, where a 1% reduction in average speed leads to a 2% reduction in collisions, and considering that the current average speed on these roads is 90 km/h, what would be the projected percentage reduction in minor collisions if the average speed were reduced by 5 km/h? Option A, a projected 15% reduction in minor collisions. Option B, a projected 7.5% reduction in minor collisions. Option C, a projected 5% reduction in minor collisions. Option D, a projected 10% reduction in minor collisions. Correct answer is D, a projected 10% reduction in minor collisions. Explanation: the performance metrics show a concerning trend in the Northern Territory (NT) road safety data. Specifically, the average speed of vehicles on arterial roads has increased by 15% over the past quarter, while the number of reported minor collisions has also risen by 10%. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a data-driven approach to identify the root cause of the increased collisions and to propose effective interventions, balancing the need for efficient traffic flow with the paramount importance of public safety. A failure to accurately assess the situation could lead to ineffective or even counterproductive policy changes, potentially increasing risks on NT roads. The best approach involves a detailed statistical analysis to determine the correlation between the increase in average speed and the rise in minor collisions, and to quantify the potential impact of speed reduction measures. This requires calculating the expected reduction in collisions based on established road safety formulas, such as the relationship between speed reduction and casualty reduction. For instance, using a simplified model where a 1% reduction in average speed leads to a 2% reduction in the number of collisions, one could project the potential safety benefits of implementing a 5 km/h speed limit reduction on these arterial roads. This data-driven projection, grounded in established road safety principles, allows for an evidence-based decision on the most effective intervention. An incorrect approach would be to simply implement a blanket speed limit reduction across all arterial roads without first quantifying the expected safety benefits and considering the potential impact on travel times. This lacks the necessary analytical rigor and could lead to unnecessary inconvenience for drivers without a guaranteed commensurate increase in safety. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on increasing police enforcement of existing speed limits without understanding if the current limits are appropriate or if the increased speed is a systemic issue. This reactive measure might not address the underlying causes and could be resource-intensive without a clear understanding of its effectiveness in reducing the observed collision trend. A third incorrect approach would be to attribute the increase in collisions solely to driver behavior without considering environmental factors or road design, thereby missing potential engineering or infrastructure solutions. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with data collection and analysis, followed by hypothesis generation regarding the causes of the observed trends. This should then lead to the development and quantitative evaluation of potential interventions, considering both their expected effectiveness and their practical implications. Finally, a robust monitoring and evaluation plan should be established to assess the actual impact of implemented measures.